Hello, this is the Stories Beside channel. I release videos every day for you. Subscribe and click the bell. Helen started a general cleaning job at the country mansion where she and her husband lived. The work was in full swing. The woman turned on cheerful dynamic music and vacuumed, singing to the beat of the melody from her headphones. Then she decided to take out the garbage, and suddenly she noticed something bright at the bottom of the basket. For some reason, her hand reached for the incomprehensible object, and the woman took it out of the trash can. It turned out to be a pregnancy test, and it was positive. Helen fell into a stupor, turned off the music at the same second, and sat on the edge of her chair, staring at the test without blinking and swaying from side to side. There was only one thought hammering in my head. This is the end. The test is definitely not mine, which means my husband has a mistress, and even pregnant. What a bastard. I'm not allowed to have a baby, and she's allowed. Her whole life flashed before her eyes in that second. Helen lost her parents early. They were gone when she was only 3 years old. Since then, Helen was taken by her grandmother Molly to her village and raised on her own. Life in the village was not sugar. It was hard. We got up late, went to bed late. The whole day in the hard work and care of the house and farm. Helen loved medicine since childhood, treated animals, was kind and sympathetic. But when the girl turned 18, just before graduation, her grandmother died. She had been stunted and sick for a long time, and had faded away like a candle. No matter how you look at it, she was old. A distant relative helped with the funeral, and she advised Olia to go to town. She lived there herself. The woman kept urging the girl, "Wait a minute with your medical school. It's no fun doing injections and giving drips. You understand that the most important thing for a girl is to get married. Then there's no need to work, especially since you're such a beauty. Legs from ear to ear, dull face, gorgeous hair, braid up to the shoulder blades. Do you want me to help you meet a businessman? Come and visit us, and we'll invite him too. He's about 15 years older than you, but that's okay. The main thing is that he's loaded with money. If he likes you, you'll be like cheese and butter." Helen was in deep shock after her grandmother's death. She didn't know how to live or what to do. So she just nodded in agreement, trusting Aunt Masha. She wasn't a stranger. She wouldn't give her bad advice. And so they did. Helen came to stay with her aunt. That same evening, her partner, her business husband, Den, was invited to a dinner party. The man was in his 30s. He was outwardly very good-looking, well-groomed, charismatic, handsome man who knew his own worth. Den adored girls, especially young and inexperienced ones. It was his weakness. Aunt Masha was well aware of this from her husband's stories, and they decided to play on it. When they were introduced at the table, Den immediately started drooling. Maria chirped, "Let me introduce you, Den. This is Helen, my cousin's niece. Such a good girl, from the country, and such grief. Her grandmother raised her, and now she's dead. She's an orphan and all alone. She wants to go to medical school. She came to visit. Helen, this is Den. He's a very respectable businessman, my husband's partner, Alex. I hope you two will be friends. Shall we raise our glasses and drink to the meeting?" Helen said hello and blushed. The strange man was looking at her so expressively. He was staring at her, and Den was already mentally doing everything he could and could not with Helen. He liked the girl madly, all as he liked. Plump, sensual lips, beautiful eyes with a twist, slender, long-legged, and clearly not at all tempted in the pleasures of love. Blood and milk, what can I say? You can't get one of those in New York nowadays. Den wooed Helen all evening, made subtle hints and compliments, and asked her for her phone number. That's how they started dating. The man was exhausted and wanted to jump on the girl right away, but Helen was completely wild, and at the slightest attempt to get under her blouse or skirt, she pushed the gentleman away and began to cry. "I'm afraid, that's all. Moreover, Maria sternly warned Den, saying, "If you like it, get married. The girl is good, hardworking, easygoing, an ideal wife. But don't you dare spoil your niece for nothing. A relative, after all." So Den made up his mind. Why don't you really get married? How many women can you change like gloves? With such a beautiful woman, you can go out and show your face in high society without being ashamed. A month later, there was a big wedding. For Helen, it was all so unexpected. Her opinion was not asked at all. Her Aunt Maria and Den were in charge. She kept talking all the time. "There, Helen, you'll thank me for the rest of your life. What a fiancé I've introduced you to. Now look, don't lose face. Obey your husband, do what he wants, do your best, and you'll think your whole life is in the bag." And a confused Helen didn't know if she really loved Den or not. Too little time had passed. Yes, she undoubtedly liked him. He was smart, gallant, but she was, to be honest, a little afraid of him. How would it all work out? Would they get along at home? How would the first wedding night go? The girl felt like a student before the most responsible and serious exam. Den was glowing, accepting congratulations, and never took a step away from his princess. He was literally counting the minutes until the end of the dance ceremony called the wedding, to finally get what he longed for, his wife's innocence. And here they are, finally the two of them in the mansion. Helen is so beautiful and fresh. Den eagerly untied the tight corset and helped her remove her wedding dress. He admired his wife's shape and figure. Now she belonged only to him. Just the thought of it turned him on like a madman. And Helen was shaking like a fever. Several feelings were struggling in her. Desire, fear, shame. It was all mixed up. Her fears were all in vain. Den proved to be a skilled and very sensitive lover, and their first intimacy went wonderfully. Den was passionate and tender at the same time. He whispered such words of love, called her happiness and sunshine, joy. For the first 6 months, they had a complete idyll. Helen took care of the house and the household, and faithfully waited for her husband from work, and Den flew home like on wings. The woman felt loved and wanted. But soon the man got fed up with a young maiden body. He was filled to the brim with it, and he again wanted a novelty and spice of sensations. Helen was a really good hostess, had a good nature, tried not to scandalize, and smooth over sharp edges, doing all the whims of her perpetually disgruntled husband. But every year the situation only worsened. The sharpest scandals and clashes between them were about children. Helen badly wanted to become a mother, and it is normal for any woman. But Den was adamant about it and kept saying the same thing. "It's still early. What's the rush? I'm all about doing and working. You can see I come in all exhausted. And there will be screaming, squealing, diapers and diapers. What's the rush? You've got your whole life ahead of you. You'd better give me a relaxing massage, just the way I like it. Come here, sweetheart." Helen cried and resented it, but there was nothing she could do about it. So she took the damn birth control pills, secretly dreaming that Den would soon change his mind, and they would become parents. But as the years passed, she and Den grew more and more apart, and no children were in sight. Recently, Helen couldn't take it anymore and decided to have a serious talk. "Den, I can't do this anymore. If you don't want me to have a baby, let's take one from an orphanage. There are so many abandoned and destitute children. Let's go tomorrow. We'll go and see. I'm begging you. Don't you understand I'm suffering? I feel bad that I can't be a mother." The man grimaced as if he had a toothache, thinking to himself, "What a nuisance. One idea is crazier than another." I don't know why he would think of such a thing, but he answered out loud, "Not tomorrow. Sorry, honey. I have an unscheduled business trip, just for one day. I have to leave in the morning. Get me everything as usual. We'll come back to this later." Helen couldn't stand it anymore and shouted, "Why do you always avoid answering? Den, can't you see that we are already like strangers? We all have our own lives, and still no children. Don't you understand that a baby will bring us together again? I want to be a mommy again. You're just selfish and stale and dry. Den, too, has become more and more emphatic. Is there something you're missing? I took you because your aunt asked me to. You live like a queen. You live like a queen. You go to exhibitions, charity events, to salons, and what else is wrong? I don't want kids. Is that a crime? That's it. We're done talking. And the man left, slamming the door so that it almost flew out. And Helen cried with resentment and injustice for a long time. But today, she found that ill-fated pregnancy test. It turns out that Den categorically does not want children from his wife, and on the side of the affair. And they're ready to become a father. How could that be? Helen began to remember the details of their family life lately. Den, indeed, came home increasingly late. She found other women's hair on his clothes, and sometimes he smelled of alcohol. But most importantly, the intimacy between them had almost completely disappeared. Of the former tenderness and passion left no trace. Now it was just spousal duty from time to time. Helen couldn't stand it and called her best friend Chloe and sobbed and told her everything. She listened carefully, did not interrupt, and then answered, "Listen, Helen, you say Den is leaving tomorrow morning. So take a cab and follow him. See where he's going, to the station or not. You'll find out. In the meantime, pretend you don't know anything. Be patient. You still need proof. So you'll give him a scandal now. And what? He'll start denying it." Helen decided to do just that. She got up early in the morning with her husband, made him coffee and sandwiches for the trip, kissed him gently on the cheek, and was ready for him. A cab waiting for her around the corner. Just her husband out the door, and she after him. The cab driver was paid immediately and generously, so he did not ask unnecessary questions and deftly followed the car Den. What was her surprise when her husband turned to a flower store instead of the train station? 15 minutes later, he came out of there with a huge armful of beautiful flowers. The same gorgeous bouquets he had once given her. Helen felt a prick of jealousy right in her heart. Next thing you know, the man stopped outside a 5-star hotel. Helen was shaking, so she waited a while and then followed. In a frantic voice, she asked the girl at the front desk, "Excuse me, which room did that respectable gentleman go to? I have important business to attend to. A letter must be delivered." The girl smiled. "To the 20th suite. He's booked it for the day. There's a hot hottie already waiting for him, probably on a romantic date. I don't want to bother you. You leave a letter and I'll tell him when he gets out." The blood rushed to Helen's head. She couldn't hear the girl's last words anymore, and she ran out into the fresh air. She was suffocating. That was it. There was no more doubt. Tears were rolling down the woman's cheeks in a hail of tears, covering everything around her. Bastard, bastard. Shall I go back and make a scandal? Oh no, I can't stand it. It will be unbearably painful to watch my husband having fun with his mistress. And all this is low, dirty. So now you, Helen, without children, without a husband, without an education, and without a home, no one needs and one lonely. What to do? Where to run to? I don't want to see that scoundrel anymore. It turns out that Den needed me just for fun, and when I got bored, he immediately found a new doll. And after all, it's my own fault. I should not have gone on the aunt's demands. It would have been better to go to medical school. Now I would have a profession. And what's wrong with that? I don't care. I'll go home to the countryside. It's all right. People live there too. I'll be all right. I'd rather die of hard work, but I'll never go back to Den. The cab driver, watching his traveling companion rushing back and forth, sobbing and clutching her head, understood, of course, all at once. So the husband was unfaithful after all. And what was he missing? Such a beautiful woman, you can't take your eyes off her. He got out of the car, quietly approached the woman, and touched her lightly by the sleeve. "I'm sorry. Do you have somewhere else to go?" or am I free?" Helen looked at him with eyes full of tears and nodded her head. "Yes, now home to where you picked me up, and then to the train station if you can. I'll pay extra. You'll just have to wait a little while until I get my things together." The cab driver sighed. "No need to pay extra, you've already given me plenty. I understand. Let's go. Don't look so worried. Whatever God does, it's all for the best. Everything will work out. It happens so often in life. You think it's over, and then in time it's even funny. The troubles that seemed insurmountable at the time are really nothing." Helen didn't seem to hear him and just stared at one point, thinking about something of her own. She was in such shock and prostration that she was not thinking clearly at all. The woman was sobbing, frantically gathering things into her suitcase and documents. She wanted to leave a note for the scoundrel, but then changed her mind and rushed out of the mansion. She cried and cried, and there was nothing she could do about it. At the train station, she took an electric train ticket, got into a half-empty carriage, and drove back to her place. Trees and houses flashed by outside the window, as if they were saying goodbye to her. Olya was scared and anxious, hurt and painful because of her husband's betrayal. She did not know and did not understand how and why she should go on living. The woman stepped out of the wagon and wandered for a long time along the dusty country road, familiar from her childhood. At last she saw her home. What Helen saw shocked her even more. In the 4 years of her absence since her grandmother's death, the place had been in a complete state of disrepair. The yard and garden were overgrown with weeds and wild bushes. The porch was completely ruined, and the windows, long since unwashed and dirty, made a depressing impression. The woman could barely open the long rusted padlock and stepped inside. Everything here was the same as it had been in her grandmother's lifetime. Only the dust and cobwebs all around were enormous. Helen sat down on the bed with the feather bed on which she had slept so sweetly as a child, and cried again. Her hands were simply empty, and she did not want to live at all. Then she glanced in passing at her grandmother's portrait on the wall, and it seemed to her that the latter looked at her with such reproach as in her childhood, when her granddaughter had done something wrong. Her grandmother's gaze said, "Why are you so gloomy? Do not give up. You have to work, and then bad thoughts will not come into your head. Only lazy loafers suffer. And we, villagers, have no time." It was my grandmother's favorite saying, and Helen became angry with herself. Why am I really, like a fool, crying and crying? There is so much work, and now get up and go get water. I'll get the house in order, and then I'll go on crying. And the woman rolled up her sleeves and began to actively clean up, washing and putting things in order. The saddest thing was that the well in the yard had dried up and become shallow. Olya had to drag water from the river, and for drinking even farther, from the spring. At the local village store, the woman bought groceries for about a week and cooked dinner. She was so exhausted from the day's work that she fell into bed without eating. But in the middle of the night she was awakened by some screams coming from the yard. The woman was frightened, took a lantern, threw on her jacket, crossed herself, and went to see what had happened. Someone was shouting from the well pit, "Help! Help! Somebody! I'm not getting out." The woman ran up to the well and shone a light into it. At the bottom sat a frightened little boy and a small kitten covered in silt. Helen shouted to him, "Oh my God! Baby, are you okay? How long have you been sitting there? How'd you fall in the hole anyway?" The boy cried out to her through his sobs. "It's 5 o'clock. I was walking home, and I heard a kitten crying in your yard. I couldn't help myself, so I waved over the fence to see, and he fell into the hole. And he was crying so pitifully, so I followed him. I thought it would be easy to get out, but I didn't calculate my strength. I could reach the middle, but then I couldn't. There was nothing to hold on to. I've got my hands all torn up. What a kind soul you are. Now, be patient. I'll find a ladder and a rope." The woman somehow lowered a dilapidated wooden ladder she had found in the barn, and the boy and the kitten crawled out quickly and deftly. The sight was not for the faint-hearted. Both were like chimney sweeps, dirty and dirty. The kitten had calmed down in the boy's arms and stopped screaming. Olya was moved to tears of pity for the poor creatures. She commanded, "Okay, come with me. I'm going to bring you my clean clothes and a towel. Take a bath and wash the kitten with soap and water in the basin. I'll wash your clothes, and I'll heat up dinner. All I've got is potatoes and sausage. I won't let you out for the night, but I'll take you home in the morning. All right. My name is Helen, by the way." The boy nodded his head and introduced himself businesslike, just like an adult. "And I'm Peter. I live with my father and stepmother on the outskirts of the village. Everybody knows me here. My dad got a serious injury at work. He got hit by a tree 6 months ago. And my stepmother doesn't like us. When my dad was healthy, she was so fond of him. Of course, our house is big and nice. Dad earned a lot of money. He used to felling wood. And when he fell ill, my stepmother hardly lives with us anymore. She disappears somewhere in the city all day and night. She says she works in shifts, but I don't believe her. But I won't leave my daddy. I do everything myself. And I look after him." After the bath, Helen finally got a good look at her guest. The boy was very handsome, open and smiling. Together, they fed the kitten with warm milk and called him Jim. Peter gladly ate too. It was obvious that the boy was very hungry, and everyone went to bed. Helen got up early and began to fuss in the kitchen, making semolina and frying pancakes on yeast, just like her grandmother. Peter immediately washed his face and ran in at the smell. He complimented Helen. "Wow, only my mother used to fry these for me when I was a kid. I'd forgotten how good it was. And the porridge is great. No lumps." "Thank you, that was delicious." Helen patted his hair. "Thank you, Peter. I'll get some more breakfast for your daddy while it's hot. And then we'll go. Feed Jim. Will you take him?" The boy stroked the purring pet behind the ear and cradled it gently in his arms. "I will, of course. We have a big house and yard, enough space. I love animals, and so does my dad. I feel so sorry for him. He cries so much at night in pain, and he can't do anything. He just bites his fists. Maybe a kitten would cheer him up a little." Helen and Peter talked the whole way. She had such a good time with this cheerful and precocious boy. How she wished she had a son like that, to take care of someone, not to feel lonely. Peter's house really was big, well built, obviously built to last. But when they went inside, Helen was almost knocked off her feet by the smell of a man lying there. It was obvious that there had been no female supervision or hand-holding for a long time. Things were scattered here and there, dust and dirt all around. Peter took her to her father's bedroom. The picture she saw struck her to the core. In bed lay a thin, haggard young man. He had not had his hair cut or shaved for a long time, and the bed had obviously not been changed in months. When he saw such a beautiful woman in front of him, he was embarrassed. "Hello. Do I know you? I'm sorry, it's not tidy in here. I'm sick. I can't get up at all. I'm chained to the damn bed forever. And my son is still small. He helps as much as he can. But you know, he's only 9 years old. I wish I could die quicker and not torture myself and my son. I have no strength at all." Helen opened the window and pulled back the dusty curtains. "It's no big deal. I just moved to the country yesterday myself. I haven't been here for 4 years. You should see what's going on in my house. Although I was born and grew up here, but somehow I don't remember you. My name is Helen. And you?" The man replied, "I'm Max. I'm an orphan myself. Grew up in an orphanage. My teachers told me that my roots are here, in this village. That's why I came here to live. I got a job at the forestry, built a house with my own hands, married Kelly. I loved her very much. I met her at a dance at the country club. She was such a good girl, a cleaner, a hostess. The house was shining and shining with her. We kept a vegetable garden, a small farm for ourselves, had a baby boy. But my wife had serious complications after childbirth and had long treatment. But when Peter was 5 years old, she died anyway. Doctors in the village missed her, and she got cancer. They didn't notice it in time, and that was it. I grieved so much. My son was the only thing that kept me in this world. I didn't break down for him. I didn't start drinking, and I wanted to. I drank once after Kelly's funeral, and then I woke up in the morning. My head was pounding. My son was crying hungry, calling for his mother. I made a vow to myself, not a drop. We started living together, just the two of us. A year ago, I met Cindy. When I was in town on business, we bumped into each other in a store. That's how we met. I told her everything honestly about my wife and my son. She said she loved him and came to live with us. But they didn't get along with Peter. Her son didn't like her. That's all. I was angry at him at first. I thought he wanted to split us up on purpose. He was jealous. And only now I understand that he was right. While I was earning a lot of money, Lara was always hanging around me. She changed outfits one after another. She didn't want to keep the farm. The garden was my responsibility, and her manicure would go bad. But I loved her a lot, and I forgave her everything as long as she was there. And when I was hit by a huge pine tree at work, and I was left disabled, it was like the wind blew her away. She disappeared in the city, came once a week to change things, turned her nose up at me, didn't even look at me, like I was nothing. He says he's working, but there's no money, no her, just stories. It's understandable. Who needs a lying down man? And with a son in his arms. Helen unwrapped the foil with the food she had brought and sat down next to her on a chair. Yes, your situation is really critical. It couldn't be worse. I can't even believe that a small child can cope with everything. I also do not know how to live. I lived with a rich husband for 4 years. He did not allow me to have children, and the day before yesterday I found out that he had a mistress, and she was pregnant. So I decided to go back to the countryside, to my homeland. You know what, Max? Can I help you a little, neighborly? I'll cook dinner, clean up a bit, and take care of you. Don't be shy. I'm practically a doctor, but I'm not. In the meantime, have your breakfast. I've boiled some semolina and made some pancakes. I hope you like it. Let me help you sit down. Yeah, that's right. And we'll put a pillow under your back. Your Peter saved a kitten yesterday. He climbed into the empty well in my yard to get it. That's how we met. He's a good boy. He's kind. He likes animals. And after what I learned about you, in my eyes, he is a real hero. Helen, without waiting for an answer, called Pitya. Baby, I need your help. You're the boss, aren't you? Bring a bucket, rags. Show me where you have a basin, towels, clean linens. In general, help. We're going to clean up your house today. Peter was glad that Helen was staying with them for the time being and gladly began to help her. The two of them cleaned up, cooked soup, and baked a fish cake, and took care of Max. Helen washed him, gave him a mirror, and he shaved under her pressure, and she gave him a haircut and changed his bed. The man was terribly embarrassed. He was very embarrassed that such a beautiful woman was courting him, while his Cindy was having fun somewhere. Shame on him. Toward evening, Helen went home. She told Max, "You should first of all be seen by an experienced doctor in New York, and secondly, get you a wheelchair. That way you can at least walk and do something around the house. You really are a hero for standing in bed so long. It's crazy, isn't it? I'll help you. I'll go into town tomorrow. I know people at the World of Hope Foundation. Give me copies of your diagnosis and documents. I'll try to get help. In the meantime, I'll buy at least a simple wheelchair." Max almost cried. "Thank you, Helen. I can't believe that a stranger wants to help just like that. From the heart. Tell me, why do you need it? You know how many neighbors said at first, 'You hang in there, Max. We will not leave you.' But in the end, Auntie Duzia comes every couple of weeks and brings me and Peter a bowl of soup. That's all the help. Helen answered quietly. You see, Max, it's very important for me to take care of someone right now, and you and Peter are very nice and sympathetic to me. So will you let me do it? I can't sit alone in four walls. At once I remember my husband's betrayal, and I want to cry. Helen called the founders of the foundation and made an appointment for tomorrow. She drove into town first thing in the morning. She had nowhere else to stay but her house. After all, Helen decided I hadn't divorced my husband yet, so I had a legal right to be here. She just walked in as Den's car pulled up in the yard. He got out, then opened the door and held out his hand to a beautiful brunette woman. Helen looked at her and almost fainted. It was Max's roommate. They have a lot of pictures of each other on their wall. The husband, seeing his spouse, also almost lost the power of speech because he was not at all upset that she herself had disappeared somewhere. Den tried to wriggle out of it now, too. Helen, where the hell have you been? I call. You don't pick up the phone. What's that supposed to mean? The woman just grinned and answered, looking him straight in the eye. Den, stop playing the comedy. I know everything. I saw you in the hotel and found the pregnancy test too. So don't try to play the offended spouse. We're getting a divorce, period. By law, all property acquired is divided in half. I don't want your house or your cars. Just pay me what I tell you, and we'll say goodbye, and live happily ever after. Aren't you ashamed, madam, to leave your bedridden lover and have an affair on the side? Cindy went pale and changed her face. So you know that too. How do you know that? Who are you to tell me how to live my life? I'm still a young, beautiful woman, and I'm not going to spend the rest of my life with an invalid, okay? Helen answered quietly. More than that. Let that be on your conscience. Everyone will be rewarded for their actions. It is not for me to judge you. But know this, you're both scoundrels. Good day. Den pulled out his wallet and slipped his wife a wad of money, angrily dropping it. Is that enough? The spouse replied, That's enough. Just so you know, it's not me who needs the money. It's a very good man who got dumped by your new girlfriend. So think about it. If you get sick, she'll get over you too. Cindy started yelling, insulting Helen, and throwing an ugly tantrum. And Helen ran out into the street and began frantically dialing the number of the cab. She was shaking, and her soul was so ugly and rotten. Poor Max. That was the worst of it. He had such a snake on his chest. We must help him by all means. And Peter is a pity how he can cope with it all by himself, and that at 9 years of age. The first thing the woman did was to go to a charitable foundation and leave there all the coordinates and copies of Max's documents to help. Then she bought a good wheelchair, lots of groceries, the necessary medicine and hygiene products for care. I did not forget about Petya. He picked up normal new clothes because the boy walked like a ragamuffin, and some toys and books. Helen went straight to Max's house. Peter, when he saw her, was very happy, as if he were his own family, and hugged her. He looked into her eyes and asked, Helen, are you visiting us or staying for good? Stay. I feel so good with you. I'll help you in everything, honestly, and I'll stop mischief. Just don't leave me and Daddy like that, Cindy, please. He's at least a little more alive now that you're here. He's smiling. Tears came to Helen's eyes, and she stroked the boy. Don't worry, Peter. I won't betray or leave you. And I'll help your daddy for sure. You'll see. He'll get back on his feet. You have to believe that. When Max saw Helen, he lit up and brightened up. Helen, good afternoon. How glad I am that you came to us again. I thought you'd forgotten all about us. Wow, is that a wheelchair? For me? My God, it costs so much money. I looked it up online. I can't give it to you yet. The woman smiled. Max, I don't need to give anything away. I do it from my heart, from the bottom of my heart, so don't insult me. Come on, let's try to move, shall we? Peter, Go help." Together they put Max in the stroller, and Helen took him out into the yard. The man was sobbing with happiness, for he had not left his room or his bed once since his injury. Max enjoyed breathing in the fresh air, looking at the green trees and singing birds, and for the first time he wanted to live again. Helen saw how happy he was and started walking around the yard with him and showing him around. She said, "See, you need to make a new bench and trim the bushes. Look, the first daffodils are blooming. Isn't it beautiful? I just love them since childhood. Now I will take you for a walk every day. Tomorrow we will go to the river, to the spring. It's so nice and quiet. And now I'm going to cook dinner. And then we'll eat, and I'll give you a massage. I bought medicinal ointments and painkillers. You need to get your muscles used to moving. You've been lying around too much. Hopefully, the pain will go away a little after that. You can't keep swallowing such strong painkillers all the time." Max could not hold back his tears. They rolled past his will down his cheeks, hollowed by illness, and he wiped them with his sleeve and whispered, "Helen, stay here to live. You are like a good fairy who burst into my gray and joyless everyday life and painted the life of a helpless invalid in bright colors. And I don't want to see Cindy again. If she dares to come here, I'll throw her out right away." The woman answered quietly, "Don't worry, Cindy won't come here again. I saw her yesterday. It's a small world. You wouldn't believe it. She is my husband's pregnant mistress. Can you imagine that? That's what she does for a living in the city. It must be painful for you to hear that. Do you still love her? We are both hurt by this situation." Max sighed and answered seriously, "No, Helen." I was even relieved. Cindy and I had never been close souls. All she was interested in was my money. Peter is much smarter than I am. He realized that much earlier. And I took you to heart right away. You know, I feel like I've known you for ages. I really like you. I really do. But I know that life with an invalid is a pain. And I'm afraid that you'll get tired of it. And you'll only suffer with me and regret that we met. After all, you're beautiful. You can easily find a normal guy, have a baby. And I, alas, am not capable of that either. After the surgery, the doctors gave me the verdict. I'm infertile. There was something wrong with my spine. Helen abruptly turned the stroller around and looked him straight in the eye. "Max, remember, you're not an invalid. Stop talking like that. I believe that together we will overcome your illness and you will get back on your feet. But you have to want it first of all. I don't care if you're in a wheelchair or on your feet. You and Peter are the closest people to me right now. And I won't betray Cindy. Do you understand? God only knows if we will have children or not. They are not born at someone else's whim. Let me just be there for you, and don't try to calculate 100 years in advance." The man took her hand and held it in his for a long time, enjoying the warmth and softness of his native palm. From that day on, Helen, Max, and Peter began to live together. The woman worked like a squirrel in a wheel. Peter helped her in everything. And in a couple of months, the house and the garden were unrecognizable. Everything was well-groomed, the beds were level, and everything was clean and tidy. Peter was transformed too. Now he was a well-groomed, normally dressed boy, like everyone else. When Helen took Max for a walk every day to the river or to the woods, the neighbors would only give him a squint. What a madwoman! So young, so beautiful. Why should she be such a burden? It's Molly's granddaughter, the deceased's granddaughter. She traded in her life with a rich man for this feeble cripple. What's going on in people's heads? Max is not a bad guy. He's an economy guy. But living with a wheelchair-bound man is such a pain. His previous flatmate couldn't stand it. She ran away quickly and was the only one who could see her. Soon Helen will get tired of playing Mother Teresa. And Peter, the trailer in addition. And it was only old man Thomas who sharply besought them. Why are you so mean, ladies? We all walk under God. Trouble may come knocking on everyone's door. What's a guy gonna rot alive now? Look at the way she looks at him. and he holds her hand. It's obvious that they're in love. Yuck on you. Silly chickens. They don't want to help. They wash their bones every day. The old man began to visit Max in a neighborly way, undertook with him to rearrange the porch. The chimney of the stove was cleaned. The men began to socialize. Helen was only too happy about it. She welcomed the pensioner with tea and pies, and was always glad to see him. After all, the more Max will communicate, the less he closes himself off, and slowly he opens up to people. And the old man sincerely admired the fortitude and courage of this young woman, who cared for Max so selflessly. Only a few people are capable of that. A reply came from the charitable foundation. Max's documents were sent to foreign clinics, and in Germany Professor Stolz promised to take on his difficult case. But the sum for the surgery and rehabilitation was simply fantastic. The foundation began to raise funds, but things moved slowly. Then Helen decided to push Max to get involved too. At the same time he would be busy, there would be no time to mope. The woman saw that the boy really had golden hands. He worked wonderfully with wood. He burned beautifully. So she suggested it. Listen, Max. Try to make a few boxes in your workshop and get Petya involved, and I'll go to sell eggs and vegetables. And take them, so the little things will add more money. The man was fired up about the idea, and he felt much better with Helen. Care, normal diet, training and massages relieved his condition, and his back no longer hurt like hell. He could bear it. The work spun. Max turned out to have just the right talent. All the souvenirs were so unusual and stunningly beautiful. They sold very well. And time flew by while he was working, and life did not seem so dull anymore. For the sake of his Helen, Max was ready for anything. Only if she smiled and was always there for him. She was Max's muse, a stimulus for life. In addition, in spite of the disease, young people became close, and now they spent all the nights together. And Helen often caught herself thinking that those 4 years of life with the snob Den had been lived in vain. She and Den had never had such a union of souls as she had with Max. The young people understood each other not just with a glance, but with a half-smile. They were happy together. And that was it. A few more months passed. Suddenly, one day, there was a persistent knock on Max's door. It was early morning. Helen woke up, kissed Max, and said grudgingly, "Who's that at this hour? I'll go get it. Maybe the milk's here." A sleepy Helen threw her robe on and went to open the door. On the threshold stood a very excited Thomas and an elderly couple stomping beside him. The man and the woman were obviously of Balzac age, but they were dressed very expensive and tasteful, and not even a very well-to-do person had a late model Ferrari. The old man next door started the first conversation. "Good morning, Helen. I brought you some guests." They drove around the village and asked about the orphan man. I didn't think about it at first, but then I suddenly remembered that Max Tom is an orphan. He was brought up in an orphanage. Surprised, Helen invited her guests into the house and asked them what was going on. "My name is Helen, and my husband's name is Max. He will tell you all about it now. I don't know the details of his childhood. Wait a minute, I'll help him get dressed. Peter, my son, come here. Offer the guests some tea and warm up some cheesecakes." The nimble boy immediately oriented himself and began to communicate with the elderly, and Helen went to Max. "Honey, you've got company. Let's get dressed and go meet them." A man and a woman, about 70 years old. They look very rich. They are looking for a man of your age, an orphan. Max was perplexed. What's that got to do with me? How many of them are there in the world? There's no peace in my own house either. We wanted to stay in bed tonight, didn't we? Helen smiled and kissed Max on the cheek. "Don't be mean. I know how you don't like socializing because you're sick. But since people have come from so far away, give them your attention. It would simply be rude to ask them to leave. You have to listen to them." She helped him into the stroller and took him into the kitchen. There, Peter was already chirping and telling the guests how he had saved the kitten from the well. They were amazed. Seeing Max, the elderly woman replied, "Hello. Are you Max? We need to talk to you. My name is Clara, and this is my husband, Thomas. We're going to ask you a question, if you don't mind my saying so. Do you happen to have a butterfly mole on your left shoulder? It's very important." A surprised Max silently took off his shirt and showed off his mole. It was really quite an unusual shape. Rarely do you see such a thing. Seeing the mole, the woman cried out and suddenly fainted, right on the floor. Helen was frightened and rushed to her guest. She splashed water on her and waved a towel at her. A commotion ensued. Finally, the woman came to her senses and immediately cried. Through her sobs, she could only make out, "Son, Kevin, we found you. We did it. Our Kevin is here." Max didn't understand anything, so Helen poured Valocordine into a glass of water and gave it to the poor woman to drink. While she was coming to her senses, Thomas began a story. "Listen to us, please, and you will understand everything. Although I still don't believe it myself. My wife and I have been together all our lives. Ever since we were students, we started our first business together. We opened our own mini pizzeria. We baked it ourselves, brought the products, my wife traded. And then we hired people, expanded and opened another one and more. Over the years, we have a long-established network of pizzerias Italiano. I think it is unnecessary to explain how much time, nerves, money and life was spent on it all. So at first we consciously decided to postpone with children. We had no time for that. We came to our senses only when we were both 35. But it turns out that children are not born at one's will. We had been to so many clinics. We were despairing when Clara, at last, miraculously got pregnant. I can't tell you how happy we were. I took care of her, didn't let her overexert herself. All she did was shop. She went to the wholesale shop and supervised the process. Pregnancy was difficult. The birth was also a little premature. Then Kevin was born. He was so weak at first. He was sick for a long time. We were so worried about him. And then, when he was half a year old, my spouse went for a routine checkup at a private children's clinic. As if it was a sin, I was on a business trip, at a meeting with business partners. My wife has her own car and is an excellent driver. Kevin was in a baby seat. Nothing seemed to be going wrong that day. But it was winter. The road was blocked with snow on the highway. An SUV drove off in the oncoming lane and twisted sharply to the left, and in an instant it was in front of Clara's car. The wife had literally some fractions of a second to evade the collision into the ditch. Her car flew off the curb and overturned several times. Clara continued the story further. She had already come to her senses. I hit my head hard at the time. I don't remember anything. It was passing motorists who saw the tragedy and called an ambulance. I regained consciousness, but then I blacked out again. And I came to my senses only after the operation, a day later. The first thing I asked, or rather screamed, "Where is my son, Kevin? Did you find him?" But everyone just shook their hands, and neither the baby nor the baby seat were found. We didn't look for it again and again, all in vain. My husband tried all sorts of connections, but there were no results. The police closed the case. They said that in such a cold weather, the child would not survive. Most likely he died. And the body and the seat fell into the river. The accident happened near the bridge. I was treated in a neurological clinic for a long time. I thought I wouldn't make it. I didn't want to live at all. Then we tried many more times to get pregnant, but to no avail. God never gave us more children. Thomas saw how I was suffering, offered to adopt the baby, but for some reason I could not accept the fact that my son was dead. Here, in my heart, there was hope that maybe he had survived. Maybe someone had picked him up. I took up charity work. We have been helping homeless people and beggars for many years. We feed them in a special canteen, treat them for free, bring them clothes. We don't let them die. Do you know how many people are crippled among them? There were even candidates of science. Just one day, some tragedy knocked a man down, and there was simply no one to help. And he went downhill, began to drink, and hit rock bottom. So recently, we were treating a homeless man for a sheepdog bite, and we got to talking. His name is Stephen, and all of a sudden, he starts telling this amazing story. About 28 years ago, he'd done a good deed, saved a dying baby. Turns out he'd been wandering around the fisherman's hole that night when I had my accident. They often leave unfinished bottles and food, so he heard a faint squeak in the snow. Thought he heard a faint squeak or an animal, but it was a baby lying there, and a baby seat lying next to it. Stephen did not hesitate to put it under his jacket, closer to his body, and rushed like the wind to the shelter. He put it on the porch and began pounding on the door. When he saw someone coming, he ran away. He didn't want to get in trouble with the police. He'd been beaten up by them more than once. We could not believe our ears. We went to the shelter. Thank God the manager was still alive. We paid her very generously, and she agreed to go through all the archives. That's how we found you, Max. She said that after graduating from the orphanage, you were rumored to have gone to the countryside, because they all thought that you were dropped off by one of the local troubled women. That's how they unwound the yarn. Son, I can't believe I'm seeing you in front of my eyes. Tell me about yourself. How did you grow up? What happened to you? Why are you in a stroller? Max almost sobbed. He couldn't stand it, and clung to his father, then to his mother, and quietly whispered the most cherished word that he had dreamed of saying all his childhood. Hello, Mommy. Helen could not contain her emotions and cried too, one Peter perplexed. Why are you all crying? Everything's fine. I guess I got my grandparents too, huh? Well, that's great. I've been lucky lately. First, Helen's mom showed up, then the grandparents. Max calmed down a little and began to talk. I've been growing up in an orphanage as long as I can remember. The babysitters told me that I had been dropped off on the porch when I was a baby. Other children were sometimes visited by their parents, or at least some relatives, but no one ever came to see me. It was especially depressing and frustrating on my birthday. I never even celebrated it. I didn't love it. I was mentally offended at my parents. I thought, why did they give birth to a child if they abandoned him? Before I met my wife, I never had a normal life. All my childhood, I was like a wolf, surviving, fighting and fighting for an extra ration of food. I thought I would never get enough of bread. I moved to the countryside, built a house, got married, had Peter. But my wife died of a long illness, and 6 months ago, I also became disabled. A tree fell on me. My cohabitants started disappearing somewhere. I was bedridden. Poor Peter watched over me as best he could. But how much can a 9-year-old child? And then Helen came into my worthless life. It was she who made me love this very life again. Bought a wheelchair, gives me massages and exercises. In general, we love each other. Peter stuck to her, calls her mama, also does not dote on her. That's when Helen stepped in. We're collecting for the operation. In Germany, Professor Stolz is ready to take on Max, but the amount is just enormous and unaffordable. The charitable foundation, and we are collecting some money, but so far there is only a third of it in the account, and time is running out. The doctor said that if another 6 months passes, it is unlikely anything can be done. We have to hurry. I'm so worried we might be too late. I believe Max will get back on his feet and walk. We just need to get the damn money together. Look at all the wonderful boxes he makes himself, and I'm selling them. Thomas took the souvenir in his hands and cried out, "It's beautiful. Really, you have golden hands, son. I will transfer the necessary amount for the operation today. Helen, give me the details of the clinic and the doctor's coordinates. In the meantime, get ready for the trip. I think the flight will be one of these days." Helen was taken aback. "How about the other day? And the passport? We just applied for it, and we have to wait 3 months. What about Peter? I won't leave Max there alone. I'll be with him all the time. But there's no one to leave Petya with either. The child is only 9 years old. Clara grinned. Oh, don't worry. We'll sit with him, just in time to visit his grandmother. Isn't that right, grandson? I think he'll like it in our mansion. My husband will take care of the paperwork, don't worry. He has connections everywhere. It's just a small thing. The main thing is that you, my son, get well. We don't spare any money for that. Max clung to his mother again, like a little child. Thank you all, my family. 4 months ago, I was just lying in bed, not wanted, rotting alive, and my poor son was breaking into 100 pieces to help me somehow. Honestly, I only prayed to God for one thing, to die as soon as possible and not suffer. I had no strength at all and nowhere to wait for help. And now I am the happiest man on earth. I have a son, a beloved and most precious woman, and a father and a mother. What more could I want? It felt like all of my unfulfilled childhood dreams came true at once. I still can't believe it. My father kept his word, and a week later Max was operated on in Munich. Helen sat next to him, literally, like glued. Even the staff was amazed at her resilience. Day and night she prayed and whispered how she loved her Max. She gave him hope that he would get back on his feet. The worst began when that moment came. The pain was severe, his muscles atrophied, and did not want to obey. Every step was given through torture with savage pain. Max screamed, biting his fist until it bled, but he endured everything. In moments of despair, he looked at his Helen, and she whispered to him, "I'm proud of you and I love you. You can do anything. We'll dance a waltz at the wedding. Let's do it one more time, shall we?" And he got up and walked again and again. Until, after 2 months of rehabilitation, he finally stood on his feet and began to walk confidently, leaning only on an elegant cane. On their return, Mom and Dad and a happy Peter were waiting for them at the airport. He jumped up and down on his father's neck, as he had done before, and literally hung on him, tears rolling down his cheeks. He whispered to his father, "Daddy, I missed you and Mom so much. It's so good to have you home. Grandma and Grandpa's place is great, though. Can you believe I know how to play golf now? Grandpa says, I'm really good at putting balls in the hole." Helen hugged Peter too. "Honey, I missed you too. I didn't recognize you. Such a fancy guy now. I see your grandma spoiling you. And what a phone." Afterwards, Max hugged his mother and father for a long time and thanked them incessantly for their help. Clara wailed, "Why have we been crowding around here for an hour? I've got everything ready at home. I've laid the table. Why don't we all go back to our place? Do you young people mind? What do you have to do in the countryside? Max, you can't carry any weights, and we have all the amenities. The house is huge. Everyone will have their own room with a balcony. And if you do not want to live with us old people, we can buy you an apartment in the residential district. You decide for yourself." Max and Helen responded without collusion. "We'd love to live together, get to know each other better. And then we'll see." Max was stunned by the beauty and luxury of the apartment. Helen was used to it. She had lived in a golden cage with Den for 4 years. They all sat down to dinner together. Clara did her best. There were all sorts of treats. Then my mother began to show Max his childhood pictures. She cried and remembered. "Here, honey, you're the one who was just born. A discharge from the maternity hospital. What a happy father. He's holding you in his arms. And this is us bathing you. You were so skinny, just like a little boy. You loved the water so much. You closed your eyes and dozed off. And me and your father, we're making love." Then the woman reached into the chifforobe and pulled out a whole pile of children's things. She went through them and cried again. I couldn't throw them away. I couldn't help it. I press my overalls against me, and I think they smell like my son's. Thomas is swearing, "Don't hurt me." It was like an outlet for me. I'd cry, and then I feel better." She hugged Max again. "I'm so glad we're together now, and I'm not afraid to die. I just barely got used to calling you Max. In my memory, you're Kevin. That's all." A month went by. Max began to get into his father's business and to learn the basics of his business. He had dreamed of retiring, and now he had an heir to entrust it all to. And Helen, at last, took on the task of raising Peter. They read a lot, taught math. The boy turned out to be remarkably bright, even though no one had worked with him for a long time, and he grasped everything on the fly. He was enrolled in an elite private school with profound study of foreign languages. German was surprisingly easy for Peter. Helen began to notice some stirring in her stomach, some unexplainable tremors, and all the time she wanted to eat. The woman decided to see a doctor. Clara made an appointment with her trusted doctor and went with her son's fiancé for support. When Helen got dressed after the examination, the astonished gynecologist even took off her glasses. She pronounced, "Comrades, I'm shocked. This is the 21st century. My dear, do you really not understand what is happening to you? How can you be so negligent about your health?" Helen was frightened into silence, assuming the worst, and Clara asked, "What's the matter? Zinaida Yegorovna, are you going wild? Is it something serious? What disease did you miss?" The doctor laughed. "A woman is 16 weeks pregnant. Her baby is already moving, and she doesn't know what's going on. Young lady, when did you have to register? Or are you not going to be registered with us? Will you come straight to the birth?" Helen couldn't believe it and started gibbering. "I was, saving my fiancé. I was nervous. I spent 2 months with him in Germany in the clinic, and his cycle was out of sync. I understood that. But I thought it was from stress. But I had no symptoms at all. No nausea, no morning sickness, nothing. My God, is it really true? Max will be so happy. We've been dreaming about having kids. I thought it was impossible because of his illness, but here it is. It's a miracle." Olya had an ultrasound scan, which showed that the woman was expecting a boy. Clara secretly wiped away her tears of happiness, and lo and behold, another grandchild on her doorstep. In the evening, when Max and Thomas returned home, Helen couldn't resist handing him the very same ultrasound photo. The man spun it back and forth. "What is it? I do not understand." Helen laughed. "Your son. Can't you see? Here's the head, the nose, the arms, the legs." Max looked at her dumbfounded. "What son? The doctors told me at the time, after the operation, that my childbearing function was impaired, and I was now infertile." Helen just threw up her hands. "I don't know, you tell me. Daddy, aren't you glad at least? Peter, you're going to have a brother." The boy immediately shouted, "Hooray!" and rushed to his grandfather to tell him the incredible news, and Max just stood there like a statue. He kept looking at the ultrasound and smiling blissfully. Finally, he hugged Helen, stroked her tummy, and whispered, "Now I know for sure, miracles happen. I know we're going to have a baby boy. Helen, we have to get married right away. The child must have a father, and you're already my wife. Only now we'll make it official. So marry me." Helen laughed. "I'd love to, but just when I think I'm about to go through divorce proceedings with the scoundrel Den. I don't want to see him. Can you believe it?" Max promised her, "I'll talk to my father. I think he'll solve everything quickly and without your participation. And you cannot doubt me. You are my muse, my ray of light, my ideal, and I will never betray you and change you for no one. I don't care what you'll be or what you'll look like, because I love you with all my heart. And I don't want anyone else." Helen snuggled gently against Max. At that moment she was perfectly happy, and she knew that he would be her lifelong support. She was not angry with Den at all now. In fact, she was even grateful to him for that betrayal. Otherwise she would never have met Max and would never have become a mother. And then she suddenly remembered the words of that very strange cab driver. And he was right in the middle of it. all things work out for the best.